Everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning, bright and early, for the ACA Small Business Boot Camp and Resource Collective. We want to start by thanking all of our community partners for being here and supporting this and helping us with the presentations and the resources. So just a reminder, the Small Business Boot Camp and Resource Collective is designed to help prepare small businesses of less than 20 employees to emerge stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a statewide initiative supported by the community partners, and we're running it daily. We've been running it daily since we started, and we're going to continue through the end of June. We also have a key component in the Resource Collective where we have other additional resources to help support small business growth and strength during this time. So today's session is building a business plan to return stronger with the Sandler team. Tomorrow we've got rebuilding consumer confidence. Great session as well on Wednesday with how COVID-19 can affect your contract related to real estate, and we got the Rose Law Group for that. Thursday will be safety in the workplace. Will be our final safety in the workplace Thursday specific session for safety with the National Safety Council. We will have other topics to continue Thursdays going forward. And then Friday will be another marketing session for marketing to return stronger. So some quick updates on PPP. Loans continue to be made, and we still have over 100 billion left as of the numbers that were released as of June 6th. We got those this morning. With those updated numbers, we are now over 75,000 small businesses in Arizona have received PPP loans. And the average loan size has dropped a little bit down to $112,000. What that signifies or indicates is that there's a lot of small businesses getting PPP loans to help support their business, and we're excited about that. The EIDL loan information has not updated since the 30th, but we have those numbers there on the screen for you as well. So a reminder, we have a lot of resources here at the ACA to help your business grow and be stronger. We have our small business services. We can help you navigate with the SBA and the Small Business Development Centers, great local resource throughout the state and in every county. We can help with local banking and provide the latest developments. Our workforce team can also help with your business with either helping crosswalk your employees if there's some changes going on, or help you identify new employees and bring them on board. And then our manufacturing extension partnership, Arizona MEP, is a great resource if you're a manufacturer. They are one of the top programs in the nation, and I encourage you to reach out to them. So just a reminder for all statewide COVID-19 information and resources, Arizona Together is a great website. We also have our guides and our resources. This link will be on the presentation, and on our website you can resource these guides for helping your business. They range from a variety of different industries, whether it's a barbershop, cosmetologist, restaurants, retail. These guides are resources to help you return to work safely and strongly. So great spot. Additionally, we have our website, azcommerce.com/COVID-19, great resource for small businesses and large businesses. Tons of resources there. Please check it out. So today's speaker, we have Mark, Kirsten, Link, Miller, and Mary Kriske with Sandler Training. They were presented to us last week as well, a great session, and we're looking forward to this session this week, a whole new topic and new materials for us. So we appreciate them on today's call. And so I'm going to turn it over to the Sandler team. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let them share theirs.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you everyone for being a part of our discussion today. And today we're really talking about the journey to business resiliency. And we're going to be really going on this journey of talking about best practices. We know that successful companies do a number of things differently than low performing organizations. And that's what we're going to be really exploring today is like, what does that look like? What tools are available for me to be successful during this incredible time of change? And we really want to thank you for spending your Monday morning. And we invite you to share what's on your mind. So please use the chat box. And we ask for questions, concerns, understand what's on your mind. What are you guys facing? And we might not be able to answer all the questions, but we can reach out after this to get your questions answered. And so please seek what's on your mind, what's going on. And we ask that you use the chat box because we do get a, not a recording of the questions that are sent, but we get the questions sent and we can always reach back out to you to get those answers. This morning we have an hour to go through this journey together, and we're going to be really exploring like the change model via like evaluation and planning. We're going to dive in like to decision making, what metrics should I be measuring? But we've got to remember we're only dancing on the mountaintops. It's an introduction to each topic. It's really the start of the conversation. So we invite you to engage with us. I will also add my email to, or I'm going to add my email in the chat so that you can reach out to us very quickly. But as we get started, uncertainties. We know that just in general, ambiguity is just stinking stressful. When we don't have questions or we have questions without answers, it causes anxiety. When we start playing the what if game, it's entirely too much. And I think Link just posted a question that I'm going to ask you also. In the chat box, like what questions are on your mind? What's causing you stress regarding your business during this like daily level of uncertainty and ambiguity? So the first question here, I'm going to like ask Mark. So something for us to think about, how will my clients respond immediately? 3 months, 12 months? Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, and really not just my thoughts, but in the concept of our journey that we're taking, we're going to share with you some stories that we've encountered with our clients. And we've taken many of our clients on this journey because they're facing uncertainty. We're facing uncertainty with our small business here in Arizona as well. So we're part of this community and part of this journey ourselves. But, you know, these are some of the things that, you know, the questions that have been posed to us, the questions that in very significant interaction with people throughout the community, people are struggling with, people are challenged with. And it starts with, okay, we moved from what we characterized as business as usual, we didn't know it was, but to something dramatically changing where the world was locked down, our life had changed, we had to get used to it. And the first questions that we got out of the gate from one of our clients, just as an example, said, you know, how do I'm in the middle of a proposal. I've been engaging with this person for several weeks. All of a sudden we're locked down and we haven't been able to talk to each other for the last week or so. What should I do now to engage with this person? And our direction and feedback was stop thinking about business and start thinking about the personal side. You know, think about what can I do to connect with this person to help them navigate. You know, we'll get back to business, but right now is the time to focus on the relationship and on just connecting and sustaining that relationship and making it stronger, help them with what they're looking for. But then it changes as time goes on. You know, we've now come out of the lockdown. Now the environment is different. We can talk about business. We can talk about what's going to happen 3 months and 6 months down the road. We need to decide what changes do I need to make for my business and how am I going to redirect what I'm doing and how I'm going about doing it. We're going to look at how we lead our employees, because this is another question that we've had is my employees are stressed out. My employees are telling me that I can't come into work right away because I still have childcare challenges, or they're very significantly concerned about, you know, socially isolating and they're not ready to come back into work. How do I navigate these challenges that we had? How do I keep the world safe, not just my employees, myself, but also my customers? I'm engaging with people. I don't want to have to run into a situation, you know, personally where I've infected my customers, but also the liabilities of potentially, you know, running into these things. And, you know, there are sessions that we talked about safety and about those other things where we're not here to talk about the specifics of those actions so much as the business planning elements around them. How do I navigate my business, myself, my employees through this process to execute against it? And then how do I personally respond? Go ahead, Link.
So let's put some wrapping around this. You know, that first step, that baseline, the baseline that comes in, and all of a sudden our business is like, what do I do? Well, the first thing we tell our clients to do is take a breath. Take a breath, because immediately if we run around panicked and trying to respond to all these little pieces, and we've had these conversations with our clients, we sat down with them, we said, okay, look, the world is changing. Nowhere in our mindset did we think that a pandemic was going to be in the realm of this, or social unrest, or all these other pieces that are changing the environment of our business. So we have to think about this, that as the business owner, and we've talked to our clients about this, hey, as you as a business owner, realize that you have to breathe, because your client, your customer is doing the same thing. Understand where you want to be 3 months from now. Think about, what does that 12-month conversation look like? What do we have to change now so that when we get to that 3-month period, we can step back, look at it, and say, we need to change this, this, and this, so that we can get to where we want to be in 12 months. What needs to change in my business? So when we talked about our clients, we sat down with all of our clients, and we all had meetings with our clients, and we said, let's talk about where we're at. Let's talk about the environment. And the biggest thing about this is that immediacy point, take a breath, is the business owner, if you're panicked or if you're dismayed, it's going to transmit to the other customer, and it's going to transmit to your internal customer, which is your employees and the people that are working with you. So having that time to even be vulnerable with them, or even vulnerable with yourself, gives you the opportunity to step back and look at these things. How do I lead my employee? How do I keep everybody safe? Like you said, how do I get people back and forth from work? We had a client, Square Care, talked about, didn't they talk about us, and not talk about us, but didn't they talk about, we had to put 2 people, which we used to put 3 people or 4 people in a van when they would go out and do cleanings, but now it was 2 people. And they realized that they were more efficient by putting 2 people in. It's a consequence that came because of some new information. Unintended
consequence.
Yes. So there's going to be a lot of those things right now as we make this transition from where our businesses were and where our businesses weren't. So just wanted to keep that in mind, guys, is that take that breath, breathe, take the moment to breathe.
And I'll step back to another specific example, and this really exemplifies the journey that we're going to take you guys on as we talk about different elements of, analyzing the business environment, building a plan, deciding what we're going to commit to, and then executing against that, and doing it in a way that does not drop balls, in a way that's effective and as bulletproof as possible. There's always uncertainties. A particular client had a series of, 8 different retail outlets that they were working with, and they worked in the service industry. So they were not selling a traditional product, but they were selling a service, but they were also considered an essential service. So they were able to continue to do business, but not have the retail stores open. Without any online experience on behalf of themselves or on behalf of their client base, they had to shift on a dime within a week and a half to take their entire business model and deliver those services online through Zoom meetings. And build the plan, execute, get everybody acclimated, navigate their customers, because that's part of the journey that you take, is you're navigating how to migrate your customers to a new way of doing business with you. You're navigating how to get your employees to do a new way of doing business, because the employees had no online experience either. And 2 weeks later, they were delivering and still in business, still generating revenue, delivering their service only online. And then 10 weeks later, going back the opposite direction, reopening their stores, moving their clients back into the face-to-face if their clients wanted to. Like you said, Blink, the unintended consequence, because of moving online and because of creating a new business model that they hadn't engaged in before, they were suddenly able to realize that their geographic footprint that was established by the 8 store locations that they had was no longer relevant for potential new customers, and they could market their service across the state.
Yep.
That's the type of journey that we're encountering, and that we help our clients navigate through it. So what it looks like in specifics, and as we roll our way through these slides and take you on this journey with us, excuse us that we won't go into detail in many of the tools and many of the specifics. We'll show you a few of them, but it's just beyond the scope of being able to keep it within an hour to actually show every tool and every analysis. But we start by evaluating where are we at, what does the outside world look like, what does my internal world look like, where are my strengths, where are my challenges, and how am I going to navigate it. Follow that by defining what my priorities are and where I'm going to make my bets. There's a lot of uncertainty. The bets are not going to be definitive, like I know all of the details and know how to respond to this. But at the same time, if I don't choose a path and I don't engage and dedicate myself to something, then I'll spin around and I'll be stuck in the denial phase of change, of not accepting that the world has changed and I have to execute and change my own business model with it. And then once I've made my decisions, I've decided what my projects are and where I want to go, now I'm going to allocate my resources. I'm going to assign responsibilities. I'm going to put some metrics in place to know how I'm navigating and where I'm going, and review that on an ongoing basis. We'll take you through some real world examples of this as we spend the rest of our time together.
And guys, remember, this is this concept, this roadmap, this traveling. It's about being agile. It's about being nimble. It's not about having to deep dive on everything, but you do need to take some breaths. You do need to dive down. You need to take a look at your business and say, hey, these are some things that I could change. These are some things at this moment, the things that I didn't want to do when I was doing my business the old way, I can do it the new way. And this is one of the things that our clients are recognizing, is that by sitting down and taking a look at the business model and realizing the environment has changed, we can do different things. Mark?
Well, and this material that we're bringing you through, this journey that we're bringing you through, is both things that we do with our clients on an ongoing basis, but it's also a well-navigated design program to analyze your business and bring it out to the excellence stage. Now, we've been doing this since long before the pandemic came about. It's a 6-step process that starts with planning, moves through organizing and deciding what you're going to do with your company as far as the positions in the organization and how people are going to execute, the people that you need, the processes that you need in place, the metrics that you're going to do it, and the leadership that's involved in it. For our discussion today, and largely as a result of the crisis that's impacted our economy and our society as of late, we're focused mainly on the planning process. How to look at what's happening and identify what's the external environment look like, where do we need to create a plan so that we can execute, and then we can move into stage 2, 3, 4 as we execute that plan all the way through. And it starts with analyzing the external environment.
So let's
take a whole bunch of specific things to look at. Some are relevant to your business, some are not relevant to your business. You pick which ones, but you start with a assessment or a matrix of how am I going to analyze the business, what factors am I going to look for, and let's make some judgments based on as much information as possible to try to do this the right way. And characterize that on a little bit more narrow basis. Blake, why don't you give us some examples of some of the clients' journeys that we've taken through analyzing their account base and making decisions?
Absolutely. Okay. So look, when you think about your customers, you think about who your customers are, what you have, what you'd like to have, things that you want to grow with. We use a model which is called, in our account base, is CARE. And that means who we're going to keep, who we're going to expand into, who we're going to recapture, and who we'd like to acquire. So let's talk about this. Now, when we talk about keep, these are our current customers. These are the customers that are your bread and butter. These are the customers that are going to stick with you thick and thin. These are the customers that understand you and you understand them. There is not a lot of political backlash. You have a good representation with them. You have a good understanding of their world. They have a good understanding of your world. They pay on time, or they stick to their covenants. When we talk about an expand account, it might be someone who was a keep account, but we want to expand. We want to go into another division, or we have another product or service that we want to put into there, or we want to talk to them about. So this is how do we expand that relationship so that people can be more effective in that conversation, or we might even have a recapture, meaning, we should really give someone a call. We should really talk to this customer, or we had this type of customer vertical that we're no longer doing. that we've had some changes in a product, or we had some changes in some people, that we really need to recapture that piece of business again. Then you have the acquire. Acquire is these brand new businesses or brand new customers that are out there. What does that look like? What is their demographic? Where do they water? Where do they eat? Where do they sleep? So that we can start to get a better understanding of how they think, and then track ourselves or attract them to us and us to them. When we think about where do we remain viable in our new targets, this is the keep model, or the care model, I should say. And when we think about this, one of the top things that you should be doing, or I know everyone has already done this, contacting all your customers and just checking in with them, seeing how they're going. When we've recognized this, then we make these calls, we call them touch calls. We understand that there's a context that the people stay viable and stay more reliable with you, and shows a vertical that you can grow within with the more attention that you pay. Think about it.
Let me share a specific example on this care model. And one of the clients that we worked with, that we navigated them through the care model, it's a mid-sized business with customers around the country. They provide data for legal services. And one of their big customer segments was the oil and gas industry, the power industry and energy industry, as well as the transportation industry, both of which have been cratered, catastrophic shift in this economic environment. They looked at the potential customers that they could serve in the different industries that they could align with. And they're not abandoning the energy industry, because energy is cyclical. It may come back at eventually, but it's down for quite some time, and they have to readdress or refocus on other industries. So now in the middle of their target sites are the pharmaceutical industry, the technology industry for remote meetings and the things that we're utilizing here, as well as the technology industry for touchless commerce, for how to navigate a retail store in a way where you don't need to touch things that are interact with your clients. You can make payments remotely. You can do all of the things that we're directed to reshift their target client and put initiatives behind how to engage a segment of the industry that they had not been prioritizing up to now, but now they have new priorities in terms of the industry segments that they're addressing that are impacted by the economy. And all of us, we need to make decisions about what do we think is going to happen in the economy, that it translates into our particular industry, so that we know, what we're going to have to do personally.
It sounds much like one of our construction clients that does a remodel, or that builds homes here in Phoenix, but also does a lot of stuff in Williams, Flagstaff, Prescott, Sedona, Northern Arizona. We were going through the KEEP model at the same time that the pandemic hit, and now the social unrest has hit. And they recognize that they need to do restructure, and we talked about restructuring their business based on their keep and expand models. So that those two pieces in itself, they're willing to let go of some other pieces so they can get to where they want to go. That proverbial, you can't get to second base standing on first. They really looked at this, and care model was one of the ways to do that. And what has happened because of that, their business model here in Phoenix is actually expanding. And now they're thinking about buying properties, and they're buying and rehabbing properties, but also the clientele in Northern Arizona that start from here, they realize that the two are connected. And we realize that by connecting those two, they could acquire new business, and they could even grow the business in Northern Arizona and the Valley even more so.
Wait, can I share something?
Yes, please, Mary.
Okay, so it's really interesting as you're talking about connecting. A recent conversation that I've had with a couple clients is about recapturing. And so we took the opportunity to look at like a 12-month review of who they've done business with in the last 12 months, the people who left. We did it 24 months, we did a 36-month review. And we were able to identify key players that they could reopen that conversation. And to what Link said, really to explore how they're doing and what's going on and what their immediate needs are, and to see if they could address those immediate needs. When we're under so much incredible stress, someone coming in and selling to us does not meet the need or serve. But having someone walk alongside of us and say, hey, can I take that off your plate? That's an entirely different conversation, and it's all structured before that call's ever made. right? So we identify who they're going to call, and then we structure what that conversation is going to sound like. Because you don't want to be shooting from the hip, no matter how smooth you are. You want to make sure this is planned and it is dialed in so that the person who you're talking to is in the spotlight. So just wanted to share that.
David.
Well, and I'm reminded of another customer and you know, applying recapture to our business. And one of the things that we've done recently, which was, you know, go through and the same exercise that we lead our clients through on the journey. But we had a client, $100 million retailer, online retailer that we had worked with for several years, and they reached where they wanted to go. You know, they had their training, their customer service training, their sales training, their engagement and accountability training that had achieved what they had hoped to achieve, and we had largely parted ways for the last 2 or 3 years. As part of our recapture, we went back to them in this current environment and said, you know, we're just checking in, seeing how things are going. I know that you had some physical retail stores. You also have the majority of your business that has been online for quite some time. It was, is there anything that you need right now? And their response was, you know what? We have lost it, or at least we've taken a few steps back. We got a little bit too comfortable with how easy things were in the strong economy. It's time for us to bring you guys back in and help our customer service. First off, listen to them, listen to their engagements with the customers, tell us where they are at as far as their regression, if you will, and tell us if we can help them migrate forward and get back to where they were when we stopped working with you. So we recapture a client that way because their needs have changed. And then we look at that these third couple of pieces. Don't forget, when you're looking at your external environment, your competition is doing the same thing that you're doing in terms of trying to reevaluate their business and decide what they're going to do. So you need to be looking at, you know, how are they going to respond to the competition that I traditionally engaged with? But not only that, what are my new competitors? Because we have a client that we work with that sells supplements that suddenly figured out that part of their supply chain enabled them to also sell PPE when PPE demand was super high, significant, and they introduced PPE into their product line in order to be more competitive and became a new competitor in the world of PPE in a market that was booming at the time and probably is still booming because there's still headway, but now we're helping them navigate through that transition process to try to keep those customers even after things start to shift. You know, either keep the business model or at least keep the customers that they've got new relationships with, and how to align those with their traditional business models.
So
and much like
I'm sorry.
the last piece here, look who your fellow travelers are, who do you need to join, you know, take advantage of the opportunity to engage with new fellow travelers, new alliances, new engagements. It's one of the things that I'm thankful for in our journey is that we've developed a stronger relationship with the ACA than we've had in the past as a result of working through these type of engagements and finding new fellow travelers that have common goals of helping the industry and helping the recovery. Go ahead, Link.
So David, in your question, one of the things, one of the foundational pieces that, and we understanding our environment or these economics or changing economic landscape is that we have the capability of understanding and really follow through with the understanding that people buy from people. And as long as you have that strong relationship with your client or your customer, they're going to see you and they're going to be looking to you. They're going to be looking to you for support and leadership. So when we talk about in light of the epidemic that applies to the care model, understanding your customer and understanding where they want to go, what their vision and mission is really part and parcel of all the conversation. People do not want to be told where to go, but they want to be able to go there on their own. They want to be able to go there collectively with help. So when we talk about, you know, how do I incorporate change economics? Well, a great example is the one that Mark just talked about is our clients looked at their customers and said, you know what? We can do PPE stuff here. We can provide other services, and don't do this in a vacuum, because that call to your customer is really about how can we help you get to where you want to go? How do we help you get to that point? Because their economics are changing as well as yours. So, but to change with them instead of changing outside of them is where we want to be. Change with them. Be in the dressing room with them so they can come out and take on the world in a new costume and a new shield. Mark?
Okay, so again, we dove into some of the specifics. As far as the tools are concerned, we're not going to go into tremendous amount of detail aside from as we look through these environmental factors, these external factors of the economy, the service structure, what's going to happen. We're making judgments. What's the priority for us? How is it going to impact my business? What do I need to do next in order to capture that opportunity and go through it systematically and methodically? We all need to go back and redo our SWOT, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What's changed? How are we going to respond to it? This allows us more of an internal view of our strengths and our opportunities, or an external view of the weaknesses and threats, and how I'm going to limit those negative effects that are beyond my control, the external version, and how I'm going to take advantage or execute against the ones that are within my control.
So let's talk about this. On our SWOT analysis, being completely transparent and vulnerable, Mark and I in our business, and Mark and I and Mary in our business, did not put on our SWOT analysis when we got done, started doing it for 2020. We didn't put a pandemic on there, and we definitely didn't put unrest in there. So when we think about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, what strengths did we have? We knew our product delivery, we knew our understanding, we knew our service delivery. That was a strength. But we also recognized that we had a weakness because we weren't as, even though we had done all kinds of Zoom stuff and go-to meetings and what was the other service we used to use? Skype, and there was a couple other ones.
WebEx. All of the above.
All of the above. We realized that we had to get stronger. We had to get stronger in our context with that. And that was something that now has become a strength. Our weaknesses in the past, listen, your weaknesses and your opportunities and strengths and threats, all of these have an opposite side to them. So what is considered as a threat is actually an opportunity, and what is an opportunity is considered a threat as well. But when you think about the opportunities that are available, like that client looked at their customer base and said, you know what, we need to put PPE in here. We need to do some other things. How nimble and agility, how much agility do you have to switch and understand this? So what we do is we sit down with our customers and we say, hey, show us what we got. Let's talk about your strengths. Let's go through your weaknesses. Let's go through your opportunities. Let's go through your threats. And then let's put it aside for a second and let it just stew. Bring it back out. And now let's look at this now. Based on the environment that we are in at this moment, how can we change these things? What things need to be changed? And a lot of times, it's just the way that we look at these things that tell us that this is a weakness. Because that weakness is actually a strength. And that opportunity is actually, or that threat is actually an opportunity, if you're nimble enough to take on that run. Mark?
Right, so after we've looked at the external environment, we've analyzed what's going on outside, we've made some assessments and some judgments, we've looked at our internal capabilities and what we think we can do about it, we have to decide. We have to make decisions. We have to identify priorities. So I love this proverb, if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either one, right? So decide which rabbit you're gonna chase. You look at your external environment and draw out our roadmap. Where are we at now? Where do we want to go? And what path have I chosen to get there? Now I can start building out plans to execute against and try to make sure that I don't drop the ball as I migrate my business to be more resilient and to be responsive to what's happening. And I become the resilient business that captured the opportunity in a downturn, as opposed to the victim that succumbed to it and wasn't able to adapt to it.
And Mark, what's interesting is that we've had some clients talk about they were chasing this rabbit and they've always wanted to chase this rabbit, and this opportunity, this place allowed them to change and pivot their business to where they wanted to do and what they really wanted to go after. When we talk about, that one client that had 8 centers and now they were retail, but now they moved onto this side, they just recognize that there's a whole nother platform of business that they could go after. Now it's not 2 rabbits, it's still 1 rabbit, but they recognize there's a subset of that rabbit that they could go off and bring into that fold as well.
Mm-hmm. As we build out our plans, we identify which priorities, we make decisions, which ones we want to go. this is where metrics, and this feeds right into the accountability and the execution stage of where we're going with this. Metrics become so important. How do we know that how will we know when we get there? Because if I don't align my metrics in advance, if I don't put some quantifiable, milestones and banners out in order to figure out where I'm at, where I want to go, and when I've achieved that or not achieved that, then I'm likely to fall back into the emotional side of declaring victory when I actually haven't achieved what I originally thought, or not even thinking about it again and slipping back into, let's just make unintentional decisions, allow things to meander, and I end up off course. I end up not staying on course for the things that I've committed to and the path I've had. Now, that's not to say that we can't change course. If we come to new information and come to the realization that we may need to take a different path. Also, part of the journey is recognizing the opportunities that come to you while you're on this path, or recognizing the ruts that we may have steered ourselves into. But it's much more effective if we identify the roadmaps and the signage that's going to tell us whether we're still on path or whether we may need to take a change, to the course that we're on.
It's kind of like tracking when you're sailing. Is you want to get to that point, but because of the wind, the current, and everything else that's going on, that you may have to go back and forth until you arrive to where you need to go. That's okay, but your priorities. Keep going.
Yep, and we're going to evaluate our priorities, and they're going to change over time. The priorities maybe just remain viable. Just live to fight another day. Second, and this is what we see right now across the industry, is people are starting to move into this phase of, I need revenue now. I thought I was pretty good. Maybe it's the environment, maybe it's my own misleading of how vulnerable I was going into this, but at this stage, it doesn't matter. I just need to fill my pipeline. I need to execute. I need to get my team, hitting the ground running. Or it may be some of the new demand, things that I didn't know that were out there. I'm also going to have to look at my challenges or anticipate my challenges. What am I going to face as I go on this journey? What are my employees going to face? What could pop out of nowhere that if I'm thinking about it ahead of time, I'm going to be more prepared to execute against it. These might be cash flow. Might be time to look at my team and realize that my current team may not have the skill sets or the capabilities that they had. Or if I've had an ambition of upgrading my team or my talent, that right now is a very good time to look at the talent that's available out on the street, because the employment situation has changed, and I might be able to upgrade some of the folks that I had. I need to be able to watch for what's happening and move and shift and bring the right tools to be able to respond to the barriers or challenges that I'm going to encounter on my journey. And then execute against the plan that I put together. Who's going to be responsible for what? Nobody likes accountability, but accountability is what keeps us on track and prevents us from making mistakes and allows us to recognize when we have made a mistake. It may or may not be an individual's shortfall. Doesn't really matter ultimately. Let's just figure out how to stay accountable, how to stay on track, and hold the people that are responsible for our priorities accountable for what needs to happen. So what is the due date? Who's it assigned to? How much am I going to allocate resources to? When does the funds need to be available? And what is the approval cycle? Do I need to be aware of everything, or am I going to, empower some of my people to make some decisions and make some changes, but reserve for the bigger decisions on myself?
So what you're saying there, Mark, is that in that boat, trying to get that boat where it's needed going, if we're all rowing together and not rowing opposite of each other, it helps to keep, because when you row opposite of each other, you just spin around in a circle. But if you're rowing together, you can get to where you're going. Is that what you're talking about here? Is it communicate this process? Who's responsible? Who's ultimately responsible for the growth of my organization, or taking my organization where it needs to go? Who's actually going to be accountable in the processes and the priorities along with that, in that direction? And then
right.
who do you consult along the way to make sure that we are rowing at the same clip, or we're all rowing at the same rhythm? And then who's also informed, who's actually taking care of this and doing these things? Who do I need to inform? So when we talk about How do we allocate? How do we make the responsibilities? We're talking about that RACI model now, aren't we? We're talking about who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed as we make our decisions and move our business forward. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yes, and I will go a step further and recommend everybody's, there's every business that engages with us is at a different level, depending on where they're at, what their journey is, what their industry is, what the scope of their business is. But I would encourage you, as you're going through this journey, to take your employees, at least your key employees, with you on the journey. You want them to have buy-in. You want them to be part of the decision cycles that's made, much like the retail store that we told you before that needed to go online. They took their top 8 managers for each of the different segments, and they were part of that journey, part of analyzing what needed to happen. And they ultimately had to be, because they had to be trained and they had to execute against it. But they didn't wait until the plan was all put together to engage their people. They took their people as part of the planning process, part of the analysis, and part of the buy-in that's going to get alignment like you described.
Wait, hold on, Mark. On that point, when you're talking about accountability and people get to choose the jobs that they're going to excel in and to move the process for, it's actually inspirational, and it's really neat, like that intrinsic motivation. And when you start to tap in on that intrinsic motivation within your team, you're going to move forward in a very successful way because everyone's going to be open. And so it's a really important key. Thank you for bringing that up.
Right. So some questions to ask yourself, questions that we work with our clients to ask. Who's responsible to drive the review process? Who's responsible to drive the accountability process? Is there accountability, or is the buck being passed? And who are we going to outsource, or who's our fellow travelers? Who are we going to work with? Because external accountability is one of the most important elements, is to try to get somebody who's not emotionally involved to be part of your journey, because they will bring you a perspective that is beyond what you get just with the people that you're living and breathing with every single day. And use the tools, of course. Like I said, we're not going to go into the detail of all of the tools, but the tools allow you to look at, is the plan well thought out? Have we considered the downfalls? Are there any issues that we can overcome, or are we confident that we can execute on the plan? And when it's shared with the employees, do we have buy-in across all of the people that are going to need to have buy-in? Much like we talked about, the inspiration, the leadership, it's about leaders. It doesn't mean that the leaders are doing everything themselves. It means that the leaders are taking control, and once they've designed their plan, they've designed their map, they're marching their team through a challenging environment and getting them to the other side. Communicate, guide, support your people, but also be aware of the principles of change management. This is not a new science here. Leading people through difficult times is predictable, and you can anticipate what people are going to go through, what their resistance will be when they have reached the stage of exploration and when they've reached the stage of commitment that will get you where you want to go by leading your people through these challenges.
So knowing this concept, knowing where we're going, remember, your people are going to go through the change model. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to deny. No, everything's fine. Everything's fine. If you hear that, know that they're in the process. No, we're good. Any change, any new change. No, we're good. No, we're good. The next one, I don't need to do that. That's anger. That doesn't make any sense. That's okay, because what they're realizing is they're about to change, and it's going to change their world. And that's a little unfamiliar, a little scary. The next one is, well, let's take a look at this. Maybe this might work. Exploration, which Mark just spoke about. And then finally, commitment. Yeah, this makes sense. We're going to do this. This is how we're going to attack the field. We're going to go. We're going to be winners.
And that I think is ultimately the hardest part. Hardest part for the leadership is to take that first step that says, I'm committed to doing something differently. I'm going to execute. I'm going to, we get tied up in the urgent, and we don't always step back to look for the important. And it's easy to do in an environment where urgent is happening every day. But if we step back and we look at the environment, we have the opportunity to make a commitment to the things that are going to be most important and drive that change through. So we're going to share a quick little video here, one that I'm sure everybody has seen before, but it's inspirational no matter how many times you've seen it before.
get some love here.
Winning is not a sometime thing, it's an all-the-time thing. You don't win once in a while, and you don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit. You gotta play with your heart, with every ounce of fiber in your body. I've never known a man worth his salt who deep down in his heart didn't appreciate the grind, the discipline, and to win, and to win, and to win. It is and always has been an American seal, and that's to be first, regardless of what we do. There's no room for second place. There's only one place, and that's first place. I finished second twice in my time, and I don't ever want to finish second again. But I firmly hold that a man's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment to anything he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lays exhausted on the field of battle, victorious.
Hey, I'll chime in. I always think that's so inspirational. Man, I love it because like sometimes it just gets so overwhelming with all the stuff that's hitting us and the things that we're responsible for and the new regulations that are coming out. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but it's good to know that we need to be all in. And something if I can encourage everyone to do is like you've got incredible resources all around you. Tap on those shoulders and bring them into your world. And take the opportunity to like do your like a group SWOT analysis, right? How can we work with each other? How can we grow our businesses together? And similar to I think what Mark said is that you want to bring in some outside perspective, someone who's not emotionally involved with your baby, with growing your industry and moving your business forward, that they can have an objective point of view that will challenge your thinking and get you to look at the broader opportunity. Very similar to that one company who was face-to-face and then transitioned to online, right? What happened to them? They had a whole new playground to play in and opportunities, and they weren't hampered. It was an opportunity to grow, which is totally awesome. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks. I feel so inspired.
And it's an ongoing journey because we're all still right in the middle of this. It's not the journeys that we've described to you largely haven't finished. These are ones that are ongoing and people are still trying to figure out what's our next move. How do we make sure that we execute against the things that we put out in front of us? So with that, Mary, you want to leave some questions and see if we have any questions in the chat box, either have occurred during the presentation or new ones that folks might have. We've got about 10 minutes left.
All right, well, thank you. So all the questions in the chat box have been addressed. And anyone else, any other thoughts, questions? Do you find it useful that knowing these best practices and I don't know, what's on your mind? It's like chirp, chirp.
A lot of times this process, you know, especially when we live in a society in a world or not, we live in a society that likes instant gratification. But a lot of times we can get to instant gratification by doing the work of planning beforehand. So that it appears to be instant gratification. Doing this planning work is not fun. Doing this look back and look through your chest of drawers and look through your things that need to be weeded out or put back in, sometimes is not fun. Businesses at this point are taking time in our clients' base is to take their time to really look at where they want to be, where they want to go, and how they're going to get there. So thank you for attending, everybody. And please feel free to ask us any questions you have. Most people ask us questions like, well, how do I get my people to refocus? How do I get my business to refocus? How do I get, and it's a lot of how do I get? And there's a lot of that is, look, we need to sit down and have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we get there together. So that being said.
Well, I was struck by the video as well as Mary as being very inspirational, but it also brought me back to our concept of the behavior, attitude, technique triangle that we all need in order to be successful. And all too often, we gravitate to the skills or the techniques. We gravitate to give me the magic key or the specific skill set. And those are important because we need the right skills. All of our people need the right skills. You know, we need to make sure that we identify or understand what skills our people need in order to navigate through these challenges. But then they need the behaviors that are going to get them there. You know, the number of calls per day, the number of habits, if you will, that build up that muscle memory so that they know how to execute and how to be good at what they're doing, putting it into practice. But the top of that pyramid is always the attitude. When we believe we can get there, when we're inspired and we're confident and we commit to it, the attitude will lead us through the challenges and the lowlights that can sometimes be difficult.
So Mark, that's really interesting because when I was talking to my client about the recapturing part, they felt like uncomfortable going back to the customers that left. And so we worked on that conversation, like, well, why is that? Let's kind of dissect what that looks like. And then when we got our attitude straight, then we were able to write the script and what that conversation would look like and the focus of that conversation. So yeah, absolutely.
So we do have a couple of questions, one extremely easy one that we'll elaborate on in a moment, but you know, yes, all of the materials that we talked about here, you know, the deck and some of the underlying spreadsheet or forms, you know, we can make available to you as well. I'll volunteer this last slide to for you to go ahead and take. We'll send you this link. This is a survey for business resiliency and execution that hopefully will help you identify some of your own priorities and some of the things that you can do. But the suggested way, the second question, the suggested way to introduce this type of team discussion into the organization, particularly if it's never been done before, or if that hasn't been the way that we've engaged. Link, do you want to engage that question?
Sure. Two questions on that one and the first question is, if this has not been done from the perspective of the leadership, it can be done easily because it can be said, hey, we're going to do this and be pushed out. If it hasn't been done from the leadership, then it's a bit of a dance, if you will, which is, hey, Mr. Owner, Mr. Ball, or Miss Boss, Miss Owner, whatever that might be, or whoever that might be. I have an idea. I'd like to get everyone's feedback and introduce this where we're going to go as collectively as a team. Now, if the business owner or the lead does this, as I said before, it's a very easy process. If it's not done by that, then there's some probably you might need to give us a call and we'll talk about some strategies how to interlace this thing. So from that perspective, this deck will be recorded and be sent to you. But when it's let's go back to it. If it's never been done before, well, acknowledge that and say, hey, this has never been done before, and we need to do this because we recognize safety and working together is going to be what leads us out of this downturn or out of this opportunity or into these new opportunities. So be transparent, be communicative, and own the fact that maybe if you haven't done it in the past, that you're going to do it now, and you're eager to see what the results are. Now, again, those results are going to vary. You're going to get some people, especially if you're in an organization has never been this open, you're going to get a lot of pushback. Why are we doing this? This is not on, we just tell us what to do. Then again, you're also going to get a lot of people that are like, yes, I finally get to be heard. I get to have a piece of information in here. I get to contribute. Interestingly enough, when we've done our studies, those businesses that are inclusive and bring people together far outperform those that are dictatorial, directed, and not communicative. So just keep that in mind. I mean, you can get people to work out of fear, but they only work for so long. But if you get people to work out of love, they'll work for you forever. Mark?
Yep. All right. Do we have I don't see any additional questions, so perhaps we'll hand it back to Robert to close out our session today.
Hey, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Link, that was a great way to end and wrap up the session with those comments. I appreciate those. Again, with the questions that have been asked, the recording will be posted on the bootcamp website. later today, and you'll be able to access that and refer back to it in the future. Again, we want to thank the Sandler Training Group, Mary, Mark, and Link for the presentation today. And we also like to remind everybody to join in for the rest of the sessions this week, 9 a.m. You can register for those on our website. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Mark.
My Mark. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
And the other Mark.
See you later. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.